the murder of my mother saved my life.
Gerda was one of only a few survivors of a 3-month, 350-mile death march.
The SS men lifted their whips and they said, "Forward march."
Of the more than 2,000 young girls, fewer than 100 survived.
We started a march known in your history books simply as the Death March.
They never talked about it.
Ever.
Hardly ever.
I was the only one from my family who survived.
They expected the girls to freeze to death.
I was with my friend and she said, "Pull yourself together, this is life or destiny." She asked me to promise her to go on for 1 more week. A week in those days was a very long time.
After 3.5 months and 350 miles of unimaginable horror.
This is going to be the first step to doom. Hilda wasn't well at all, and I held her. She was in my arms. She looked at me and she said, "I'm afraid." And I yelled out, "You are too young to die." And she said, "Promise." And I said, "I'll try."
"All march down this way," came the command. Mama and I held hands tightly. As we marched along in pairs, we heard cries and screams ahead of us. A cane hit our hands. The cane pointed at me. A voice shouted, "How old?" 18. The cane shoved me aside. I knew Mama was marching in the opposite direction. I was herded toward a group where my friends stood. I did not see Mama.
I just remember a tremendous panic. And shortly thereafter, some trucks arrived. We were loaded in the truck. I was taken away from my mother, so I jumped off. A very slight, small man picked me up bodily and he threw me on the truck and he says, "You are too young to die."
I glared at him. "I hate you," I screamed. "I hate you." Then, above all the screams coming from behind the barbed wire, I heard my mother. "Mama! Mama!" I called. Above all the confused, painful cries, I heard Mama's voice again. "Be strong." And I heard it again like an echo. "Be strong." Those were my mother's last words to me.
My family gone. My childhood gone. I was in the hand of a brutal enemy.
Those whom the SS judged unable to work were killed. Those who could work would be used for forced labor under punishing conditions.
I had a friend by the name of Ilse Kleinzähler. I'd known Ilse since childhood. Ilse was a little younger than I. Her mother and my mother were close friends. My mother always told me what a well-behaved, nice, good little girl Ilse was. How beautifully she played the piano, how I should be more like her, and predictably I hated to play with her. Together we were sold into the same camp.
2 SS men guarded the entrance and counted us as we entered. Once inside, what we saw was sickening. Several living skeletons, stretched out, begging hands.
We were bitter cold and hungry and everything, and we didn't get anything to eat for days, literally. One morning on the way to the factory in which we worked, she found a single raspberry in the gutter. She carried that treasure in her pocket all day long to present it to me on a leaf which she plucked through the barbed wire. One slightly bruised, dust-covered raspberry becomes your entire possession, and to give this treasure to a friend. In the camps we became to each other the only family we had.
By January 1945, it was clear the Nazis were on the brink of defeat, and most of the prisoners had been forced marched to other camps.
Our orders were to be shipped to a murder camp, and we started a march known as the Death March. And I was coughing terribly. I had a very bad cold. And in the morning, very early, the doors opened to an incredible picture. There was freshly fallen snow for as far as the eye could see. Way ahead, 4,000 girls. And on the side was the SS men and the SS women. And they lifted their whips and they said, forward march. And we held hands and we took the first step. We all knew that this is going to be the first step to the end of the road, either to liberation or to doom.
We marched for over 3 months, covering more than 350 miles on foot. And of that enormous number, fewer than 120 survived.
Ilse wasn't well at all. And one of the most shocking things was that one of my other friends had somehow found 2 potatoes. I gave Ilse a potato and she said she wasn't hungry. It was the most incredible statement, not to be hungry. And she said to me, you eat it. Then she said something incredible. She said, I'm not angry at anyone. I hope no one is angry at me. She said to me, you have to promise me that you are going to go on for 1 more week. A week was a very long time. And she said, promise. And I said, I'll try. And I held her and we both fell asleep. I woke up, but she didn't.
Ilse died in my arms on a wet meadow in Czechoslovakia. She had just turned 18. She never tasted another raspberry again. There were American planes overhead. The shooting of American artillery close by. And of course, they wanted to finish the witnesses to their deeds. Our small number of 120 were locked into an abandoned bicycle factory, onto which a time bomb was attached.
And they barricaded the doors with chains and things, and they told us that we are going to be killed. And I said to myself, well, I'm going to start thinking what it would be like on a night like that, being at home, being at the garden with my parents. So if they kill me, that's the memory I want. We waited and waited and waited.
Suddenly it started to rain. A torrential, magical rain. The bomb and timer did not connect. At dawn we heard voices as the doors were thrust open. I saw a strange-looking car coming down a gentle hill. On the hood of that vehicle, not the white swastika, but the white star of the American army.
There were 2 men in that car. One jumped out. I knew what I had to say. And I said to him, we are Jewish, you know. For a very long time, at least to me it seemed very long, but he didn't answer me. And then his own voice betrayed his emotion. He was wearing dark glasses, I couldn't see his eyes. He said, so am I. I told him that most of the girls were inside, they were too ill to walk. He asked me to come with him. At first I didn't understand him. And when I understood it, I could not believe it. He simply held the door open for me and let me precede him. And in this great gesture, he restored me to humanity. I weighed 68 pounds. My hair was white. I was in rags. I had not had a bath in 3 years. And here was this very handsome young American holding the door open for me. I remember that aura of ink, of that awe, of the disbelief in daylight, to really see someone who fought for our freedom. He looked like God to me.
The most unforgettable and remarkable thing that happened then was that this young woman who had shown me inside made a sweeping gesture over this whole scene and said the following words: "Noble be man, merciful and good." And it was hard for me to believe that she, in that condition, under those circumstances, had been able to summon a line from a poem by the German poet Goethe, a poem called The Divine. By doing so, she chose to underscore the grim irony of what I was seeing there more effectively than anything else that she might have said.
Francis First Young, American of Liberation Day, is now my husband. He opened not only the door for me, but the door to my life and my future.
46 years ago, I brought our youngest child, our son, home from the hospital. I held him in my arms and realized that Ilse never had that privilege. She lies in an unmarked grave somewhere in Czechoslovakia. The week which she compelled me to go on was May 7th. A week later, exactly to the day, perhaps to the very hour of her death, we were liberated by American forces. Over the years, of course, she is often in my thoughts. On the day I was invited to a bridal shower, I looked at the excitement of the young bridesmaids, the radiance in the face of the young bride. I looked at her through different eyes. You see, she is my daughter, and she is named for my friend Ilse.
I saw so much nobility of spirit in the camps. To know that the legacy of the camps is not the legacy of the horror, but of the greatness of people. The very humanity which existed there in the face of such incredible humanity.
When you help someone else with your friendship and your caring, there is a part of immortality, because you live in someone else's life and in other people's hopes. And this is really what it's all about. To invest yourself in others, like my little friend Ilse.